The Arizona Territory in 1879 was a kiln where the devil baked the souls of men to see which ones would crack. I was a sergeant in the 4th Cavalry. Company B, we were stationed out of Fort Bowie, tasked with patrolling the Dragoon Mountains. Our orders were to secure water holes and keep an eye out for Victorio's renegade Apaches. We were hard men, veterans of the Civil War and the Plains campaigns. We knew how to fight men. We knew how to fight hunger. But there is no manual in the U.S. Army for fighting a thing that wears the skin of a beast and speaks with the voice of your dead mother. Before we continue, please make sure you leave a like and let us know where you are watching from. Thanks. My patrol consisted of 8 troopers and a me Scalaro scout we called 2 Knives. He was a quiet man, sharp-eyed, who could read the desert floor like I read a newspaper. He didn't like the dragoons. He said the rocks had too many eyes. I ignored him. I was concerned with shoeing mules and rationing water, not Indian superstition. The trouble started on the 3rd day. We were tracking a set of unshod pony prints near the entrance to a box canyon south of the Dos Cabezas. The heat was a physical weight, pressing down at 110 degrees. The air shimmered so hard the horizon looked like it was melting. 2 Knives stopped his horse suddenly. He didn't dismount to check the sign. He just sat there staring at a ridgeline about 300 yards to our flank. "What is it?" I asked, wiping grit from my eyes. "Coyote," he said, "watching." I looked. Sure enough, a coyote was sitting on the ridge, silhouetted against the white sky. It was large for a desert dog, mangy and pale. It wasn't doing what a coyote does. It wasn't panting. It wasn't looking for a way to run. It was sitting perfectly still, staring directly at us. "It is just a dog, Scout," Private Miller said, unholstering his carbine. "Want me to skin it?" 2 Knives grabbed the barrel of the rifle. His face was gray, a color I'd never seen on him. "Do not," he whispered. "That is not a dog. Look at the front legs." I squinted. The animal was sitting, but its front legs were twisted inward, the elbows bent at an angle that shouldn't have been possible for a canine. It looked like a man trying to sit like a dog and doing a poor job of it. A cold shiver went down my spine despite the heat. "Move out," I ordered. "Leave it." We rode on, but the feeling of being watched never left. The desert silence, usually filled with the rasp of insects, was absolute. No cicadas, no hawks, just the crunch of hooves on gravel. We made camp that night in a dry wash. I set a double guard. The men were edgy. They didn't know why, but they cleaned their Springfield trapdoors with a little too much focus. The sun went down like a bloody eyelid, and the temperature dropped 40 degrees. Around 020 hours, the sound began. It came from the darkness beyond the firelight. It wasn't a howl. It was a laugh. A dry, hacking chuckle that sounded exactly like Corporal Henderson. Henderson was a man who had been with our unit for 2 years. He had a distinctive, wheezing laugh because of a lung injury from the war. The problem was, Corporal Henderson had died of dysentery back at the fort 3 weeks ago. The men froze. Private Miller dropped his coffee tin. "Sarge," he whispered. "You hear that? Quiet," I hissed. I drew my Colt. "Who goes there? Identify yourself." The laughter stopped. A silence stretched for 10 seconds, heavy and thick. Then, from the darkness, a voice spoke. It didn't shout, it whispered. But the whisper carried over the wind as if the speaker were right next to my ear. "Sergeant, the water is poisoned. Tell the men." It was Henderson's voice, down to the cadence, but there was something underneath it. A grinding, metallic undertone, like 2 stones rubbing together. 2 Knives was standing by the horses, holding a pouch of pollen. He was chanting softly. "Ye nalt lushi," he said. "He goes on all 4s. What is it, Scout?" I demanded, walking over to him. "A witch," he said, not looking at me. "A skinwalker. He wants our fear. He eats it." I was a God-fearing man, a practical man. I didn't believe in witches, but I knew someone was out there messing with my unit. Miller O'Brien on the line. Fire a volley into the scrub. The troopers lined up and unleashed a barrage of .45 -70 rounds into the dark. The muzzle flashes lit up the wash in strobes. In one of those flashes I saw it. It wasn't 50 yards away. It was 10. It was standing just outside the circle of light. It looked like a wolf, standing on its hind legs, but it was 6 feet tall. The fur was patchy, revealing gray, human-like skin underneath, and it was wearing clothes. It wore the tattered, dusty remains of a Union cavalry jacket, the brass buttons glinting. It didn't flinch when the bullets flew, it just watched. Then it dropped to all fours, not like an animal, but like a spider, and scuttled away into the rocks with terrifying speed. The horses went mad. They tore their picket pins. One mule kicked O'Brien in the chest, breaking his ribs. We spent the next hour trying to calm the animals. O'Brien was coughing blood. The morale of the unit was broken. We moved out at first light. We had to get back to the fort. O'Brien was in bad shape, strapped to his horse. The desert felt different that morning. The shadows seemed to stretch toward us. We found the tracks at noon. They were following us. But they weren't behind us. They were ahead of us. The creature had circled around. The prints were a nightmare, a mix of human bare feet and wolf paws, sometimes shifting in the same stride. "It is hurting us," Two Knives said. "It wants us in the canyon." "We're not going to the canyon," I said. "We're cutting across the salt flats open ground." As we turned the column, the harassment began in earnest. Stones started falling from the sky. Not thrown from a ridge, but dropping straight down from the empty blue air. Pebble-sized rocks clattered against our hats and saddles. Then larger ones. A stone the size of a fist struck Miller's horse on the flank. The horse reared, throwing him. Miller hit the ground hard. He scrambled up, dusting off his uniform. "I am okay, Sarge," he yelled. Then he screamed. He was looking at his leg. A gash had opened up on his calf. It wasn't a cut, it looked like a bite, but his trousers weren't torn. The wound had appeared beneath the cloth. Blood was soaking his boot. "It is close," Two Knives said, pulling his Winchester. "It is invisible to the eye, but not the spirit." I ordered a gallop. We rode hard across the flats, kicking up a cloud of alkali dust. The heat was suffocating. I could hear a panting sound right beside my horse, heavy, wet breathing. I looked to my left. There was nothing there but air and dust. But I could smell it. The stench of rotting meat and copper. It was running right beside me. We reached an old adobe ruin near a dried-up well around sunset. It was 3 walls and a collapsed roof, but it was cover. We carried O'Brien inside. He was delirious now, muttering about a man with a coyote's face. Night fell like a coffin lid. We built a fire in the center of the ruins. The light flickered on the adobe walls. We had our backs to the center, rifles trained on the empty windows and doors. "Come out and fight." I yelled into the dark. My nerves were fraying. "Show yourself." The answer was a low, humming sound. It came from the roof. We looked up. The roof beams were rotten, leaving gaps open to the stars. Through one of those gaps, a face was looking down. It was a coyote's head, but the eyes were human. They were blue. Bright, piercing blue eyes, set deep in the furred skull. And it was smiling. A human smile on a canine muzzle is a thing that breaks the mind. "Private O'Brien," the thing whispered. It wasn't mimicking Henderson anymore. It was mimicking me. It had my voice perfectly. "Private O'Brien, report for duty." O'Brien, half dead on the floor, tried to stand up. "Yes, Sergeant," he croaked. "Stay down, O'Brien." I grabbed him. The creature on the roof laughed again, my laugh this time, and dropped something through the hole. It landed in the fire. It was a human hand, a severed hand, dried and blackened, wearing a silver ring. Two Knives recoiled. "Corpse dust," he yelled. "Cover your mouths." The hand in the fire didn't burn, it popped. A cloud of yellow powder exploded outward. We coughed, choking. The dust tasted bitter. My vision swam. The walls of the ruin seemed to breathe. Then the creature dropped down among us. It moved too fast for a man, too fluid for an animal. It landed on 2 feet, wearing a pelt that seemed fused to its flesh. It was naked underneath, its body painted with white clay and ash. It swiped at Private Miller. Miller fired point, blank. The bullet hit the creature in the shoulder. Dust flew, not blood. It didn't even grunt. It backhanded Miller, sending him flying into the wall. Then it turned to two knives. It spoke in a language I didn't know. Navajo or Apache, but twisted, spoken backward. Two Knives screamed and fell to his knees, clutching his head, blood pouring from his nose. I was the only one standing. I had my saber out. I don't know why I drew it. A sword against a demon is a joke. But I swung. The blade connected with the creature's arm. It felt like hitting a bag of dry sand. The creature looked at me. Those blue eyes bored into my soul. It grabbed the blade of the saber with a bare hand. It squeezed. The steel snapped. It leaned its face close to mine. I could smell the carrion on its breath. "You do not belong here," it whispered. "This land hates you." Then it shoved me. I flew back, landing hard near the door. I scrambled for my Colt. But it didn't finish us. It stood there in the center of the ruins, surrounded by broken men. It threw its head back and howled, a sound that started as a wolf's cry and ended as a human scream. Then it leaped through the window, clearing the 7-foot wall without effort. We heard it running into the desert. The sound of its laughter faded into the wind. We stayed in those ruins until the sun came up. No one slept. No one spoke. Two Knives was catatonic. He stared at the wall, rocking back and forth. O'Brien died just before dawn. His heart just stopped. We limped back to Fort Bowie 2 days later. I made my report to the lieutenant. I told him we were engaged by Apache skirmishers. I told him O'Brien took a bullet. I lied. The lieutenant looked at me. He looked at the white streaks that had appeared in my hair overnight. He looked at the terror in the eyes of my men. He didn't ask for details. He signed the report. "Apaches," he said, nodding. "Nasty business." 2 Knives vanished a week later. "Deserter," they said. I know better. He went back to his people to be sung over, to be cleansed of the sickness he had seen. I left the army a month after that. I couldn't handle the night watch anymore. I moved east to St. Louis. Paved streets, brick buildings, so many people you can never hear silence. But sometimes when I am walking home late at night and a stray dog watches me from an alley, I freeze. I look at its legs. I wait for it to speak my name. There are things in the West that maps don't show. There are ancient powers that were old when the Spanish arrived, old when the tribes arrived. We call it manifest destiny. We think we can conquer the land with rail lines and telegraphs. We are wrong. We are just guests in a haunted house, and the landlord is hungry. If you are ever in the high desert and you hear a coyote call that sounds a little too much like a laughing child, do not investigate. Do not look for it. Turn around. Walk away, and for the love of God, do not let it know you are afraid. Because fear is the seasoning they like best.